America, from Channel 00 Chico, the Breakroom begins its nightly broadcast. I'm your announcer, SpongeBob No Pants, and that's the reason I'm not on camera.
As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be looking at the Grassroots. Primarily when they started until about maybe 1971. That's the time that I believe the Grassroots were at their most popular. I was a big fan of the Grassroots growing up. But like anything else, like I said, I started getting into a performer or a band, and I think I know a lot about them, and of course I know nothing about them. So let's look into the Grassroots here on the Breakroom. First of all, the Grassroots is two stories. It's the story of the music business and people writing songs and songwriters, and it's also the story about the actual musicians themselves and the band they formed. So we're going to be going back and forth. It all starts with Lou Adler. Lou Adler was a vice president here on the West Coast for Screen Gems Music. Before that, he actually was a co-manager of the band Jan and Dean with Herb Alpert of the Tijuana Brass fame, and he did that for a while. But again, he was primarily a Screen Gems vice president, right, in charge of the publishing and everything they did. He hired a guy in early 60s by the name of P.F. Sloan. And P.F. Sloan was like 16 years old, but he was a really good songwriter. And so he hires P.F. Sloan to write songs for Screen Gems, and maybe to also find maybe talent. And he puts him with a guy by the name of Steve Berry. And Steve Berry is also a really good songwriter. Together they write songs. They wrote songs like for Johnny Rivers, like Secret Agent Man, and the song A Must to Avoid by the Herman's Hermits, and You Baby for the Turtles. So they were a really good team. Sloan loves Bob Dylan. He thinks Bob Dylan is just the best thing coming. And so when like folk rock starts hitting Southern California, he's the perfect person to start writing songs along those vein to go and get people to record these songs. And he writes a song called Eve of Destruction, and nobody really wants it, but he makes a demo of it. So we're going to take a look at not only the person who made that a #1 hit, but also the P.F. Sloan's demo. So let's take a look at that real quick. He looks just like Dylan. I think Dylan actually has this pose somewhere. And if you know the song, it just sounds different. Somebody else, not such a hard voice like Barry McGuire does.
You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you're toting?
And here's Barry, again, #1 hit. Just kind of did this song really quickly, and it wasn't really a good version of it. In fact, he says that the version that was sent out to the radio stations or whatever, or gotten to put on the air by radio stations, wasn't really the final one. It was just kind of like a scratch track or something, but that's the one that took off. So again, the song gets big. Lou Adler decides he wants to go ahead and start his own company. So he starts a company by the name of Dunhill Records. and he's the president. At the same time, this is the other part of our story, a young man by the name of William Schneider is touring Europe. He's an 18, 19-year-old kid from California, and he's going through Europe in the summertime of '65 with his guitar, and he's playing on street corners and kind of, just kind of doing that whole thing. He meets a couple guys. They form a group called the Young Californians, and they start playing all through Europe. He finally gets to the point where he's actually in Israel doing a concert. And one of the guys in the crowd is a guy by the name of Warren Ettner. And Warren is from California too, and he loves the band, and he tells this guy, William, hey, when you get back to California, look me up. We got to do something. We got to start a band or something. So that was that. So that's how William Schneider met Warren Ettner. Now, again, for those of you who don't know, William Schneider has a stage name, and that's Creed Bratton. So if you're a fan of The Office, you know who Creed Bratton is. So I'll just keep calling him Creed Bratton from now on, but his real name is William Schneider. So anyhow, so P.F. Sloan is writing songs with Dave Berry, the guy that Lou Adler hooked him up with. And they write this really good song called Where Were You When I Needed You? And he tries to give it to Herman's Hermits, but they don't want it. So he asks, and he persuades Lou Adler to let him make a demo of it. So they make a demo of the song. It's a pretty good song, and what he does, he starts sending it out to like stations, radio stations in LA and San Francisco, and he gets some good feedback on it. So he says, this is a really great record. So Dunhill Records says, look it's a great record, but if you want to go ahead and promote it, you better find a band, because you guys can't go out and sing this song all over the country. You got to stay here and write songs. So they have to find a band. So there's this band from San Francisco named the Bedouins. And the Bedouins that just, I guess, won a Battle of the Bands contest up north. And they come down to kind of do an audition. And Lou Adler sees them and says, this is the band I think is gonna be the band that puts out this song, And the band that P.F. Sloan and Dave Berry were kind of sending stuff out under was the name the GRASSROOTS. So this band, the Bedouins, becomes the GRASSROOTS, and it's a pretty good deal. They already have a really good song that they can start singing. They can play all these different places. They're going to be on TV. They're going to have a gig, I guess, as the house band for a club called The Trip. They're doing really well. So we're going to take a look at the Bedouins, and we'll take a look at not only who they are, but also the song that they performed as the GRASSROOTS. Let's take a look. Here's the guys that actually became the we go back to Creed Bratton. Now, Creed Bratton and Warren are back in California. They meet up and they want to form a band. So they have to find a drummer. So they go to a Battle of the Bands, and they find a guy that plays really good drums by the name of Ricky Kuntz. And they add him to the band. And they also get a guy named Kenny Fukumoto, who plays bass and is a really good singer. And they call their band the 13th Floor. And they're a good band. And they start playing and practicing. They actually make a demo tape and send it to Dunhill Records to see if they could get a contract. And P.F. Sloan and Steve Berry listen to it and think, wow, this is a really good band. So again, they bring in the guys from the 13th floor and talk to them, and they think they're going to be perfect. But then their bass player, Kenny Fukumoto, gets drafted, and they have to find a replacement. And they find a really good musician by the name of Rob Grill. The 13th floor becomes the next Grassroots, and the Grassroots that most people know. And there's already a song ready to go. There's a song that's ready to go. It's actually from a rock band from Italy called the Rokes. And they do this song called Let's Live for Today. This is the first song that the new Grassroots put out. But let's take a look at this real quick. So that was the Rokes doing their version. And of course, like I said, the actual version that we're going to take a look at now is the Grassroots version. And it was a big hit. It came out in May of '67. And by that summertime, it was cranking. This song actually went up to number 8. And we're going to take a look at, again, the Grassroots doing their version of Let's Live for Today. Let's take a look at that. There's Creed Bratton, for those who know who that is. And this is this Hollywood Palace, December 15th. And there's Rob Grill, the guy they replaced in the band. Fukumoto. Years later, I guess, Kenny said that he got drafted, he went to Vietnam, and that he was freaking out because this song was huge over there. And he was kind of like, you know, pissed off that he wasn't in the band anymore. He was stuck in Vietnam where the other guys that were in the 13th floor had become the Grassroots, and this song was a huge hit. And it was again, the Summer of Love, and this song was kind of like, you know, embodied that whole feeling. The folks at Dunhill say, well, we need to go ahead and make an album now. And it's called Let's Live for Today. And it's released, and it does pretty well. But ironically, there was a pop festival up north called the Fantasy Fair and Magic Pop Festival. And the Grassroots were at that festival. And sure enough, that week, the week that they appeared, which was in July of that '67, that summer, this song was number 8. So they were huge. And we actually have a picture of the poster, and also a rare picture of them performing on stage. There were very few pictures taken of this pop festival for whatever reason. But I did find one of them on stage, and that's them right there. So the album comes out, and then P.F. Sloan, the writer, is done. He wants to have a solo career, so he takes off to New York, and that leaves Steve Berry in charge of the band. So he's kind of producing them. And the band, being, again, band members and musicians, they want to do their own thing. So the next album they want to come out, they want to be able to not only write their own songs or perform their own songs on the record, they also want to play on the record. So Berry says, okay, you guys want to do this psychedelic thing, go ahead. So in early '68, their next album comes out, and that's called Feelings. And again, it was terrible. Nobody bought it. So needless to say, the guys from Grassroots never asked to go ahead and be in charge of a record as far as putting songs and playing on the record. I mean, they were good musicians, but the singles they put out didn't work, so that was that. But they did put out 2 singles that did work, and one of them was called Bella Linda. And again, that came from an Italian song called Balla Linda. So we're going to take a look at that version of Balla Linda, which is also Italian. I don't know why, but I guess Steve Berry kept getting Italian songs. Let's take a look real quick. And this is Balla Linda. If you know Bella Linda, we'll play that in a little bit. But again, the music is just the same. The words were different. This is sort of kind of like the other song, but this song was kind of about a guy who knows this girl that's not intelligent or attractive or whatever, but she's a lot better than his current girlfriend who's mean to him. So eventually he kind of says at the end of the song, well, even though you're not the prettiest girl and not the most intelligent and this, that, you make me feel good. And he dumps his girlfriend to go with this girl. This is Balla Linda. A good song. I mean, and that was Balla Linda. And so again, they take this song and they put it out as a single, and it does well. It reaches number 28, and we're going to again take a quick look at Bella Linda. This is the Grassroots performing at the old on the old TV show Playboy After Dark. Let's take a look at that real quick. Again. And so that was a big hit for them, and they needed one because their last album crashed. And then they put out another single, and this song is even better. And for those of you who know this next song, it's Midnight Confessions. I think it reached number 5. I think it was their #1 seller. And we're going to take a look at this song. This is the only version I can actually find of them performing Midnight Confessions with the other guys that were actually in the band at the time. So let's take a look at that real quick. I don't know what the TS8 stands for. I believe it stands for tough shit, but I'm not sure. Like I said, this is actually the guys from the original, well, not the original, but the second version of the Grassroots, the ones that most people know. And again, Creed is still with the band.
I love you.
And one thing about the Grassroots, which was interesting, they actually had 3 guys that could sing pretty well. They had, of course, Rob Grill, who was the main singer, and then of course also Warren Ettner. But Creed also could sing. And again, he had a couple of songs on the album that bombed. But he could sing and play obviously really well. So that was kind of interesting. So even with the background singing on the records and the songs, it sounded good. They were a good band live. So that was Midnight Confessions. Now they had 2 singles that had done really well. And so what they decided to do was go ahead and put another album out. And this was kind of a compilation greatest hits. And it was brought out in November, right in time for Christmas time. And it had both those songs on the album, even though it's called the greatest hits. They put both those songs and other songs that they had done well and had done well for them the first 2 albums, like Let's Live for Today and Where Were You When I Needed You. They bring out their next album, which is called Lovin' Things. And this was done like in March of '69. An okay album. One of the things that happens though soon after that, they're doing a show up in San Francisco at the Fillmore West. And Creed, the story is Creed Bratton apparently dropped some acid and then dropped his pants. I don't know if he did it on stage or what, but needless to say, Creed was no longer in the band. They kind of moved him out. So Creed was gone, and they decided to go ahead and they had to find someone to replace him, and they brought in a really good musician by the name of Dennis Provisor. I think that was his name, Dennis Provisor. Dennis was really good. He played keyboards, and he was a great singer, and he also could compose, and he actually did really well for them. And they had another album, a single that came out, there's a fly in here, they had another single come out called A Million Miles, or Wait a Million Miles, and that was number 15 also. And I couldn't find a video of that anywhere online, so I thought I'd kind of change it up a little bit. And we're going to look at that song that was being played on the TV show American Bandstands. And of course, Dick Clark, never ages. Wait a Million Years. It's actually, there's 3 different titles. There was I'd Wait a Million Years, and Wait a Million Years, and Million Years. So I guess each one of them was correct, but there's different titles of that song, or refer to different songs. For those of you of a certain age, you remember American Bandstand. And of course, I had sisters and brothers that were older, and you know, they watched American Bandstand every Saturday morning or afternoon. I guess it was in the morning, for a half an hour. I enjoyed it. I kind of learned how to dance a little bit watching these people, and I think it was just interesting. And I liked the music. I was definitely into music way back then when I was only like 10, 11 years old. Good song though. So that was them on American Bandstand. Good song. They put out another album. This album is called, I want to say it was called More Golden Grass. That was the name of the song they put out with all the hits on it for Christmas. And this one was called More Golden Grass, and that album had on Wait a Million Years. And that was a pretty good album for them. They keep going. They're playing all over the place in concerts and stuff. And they actually do, again, another good song. This song actually reached, I believe, it reached number 15 on the charts. And they also added another person to the group. So now they were a 5-man band. They hired a really good guitarist named Terry Furlong. So we're going to take a look at them doing the song Temptation Eyes on the Ed Sullivan, live with Ed Sullivan of all things in 1970. That was a big hit for them. This is them doing Sooner or Later, It's on a show called Rolling on the River, which was actually a TV show that was hosted by Kenny Rogers and his band, The First Edition. Performing the song with them is a gal that actually is in the band with Kenny Rogers. Her name is Mary Arnold, playing tambourine and singing some background vocals. You know, they went through tons of people over the years. Warren finally left, Warren Ettner. Rob Grill stayed with him forever. He was managing the band along with playing in the band for like 4 decades. I mean, he was a mainstay. And but everybody else was coming and going. That was the end of the Grassroots on this particular episode. The band that I remember from about 65 to 71. Later on, Rob Grill passes away, I think in 2015, I'm not sure about that. Warren is still around. In fact, he actually became like a big manager. He managed bands like Quiet Riot and Rage Against the Machine. And of course, Creed Bratton is still around for those of you who are fans of The Office. And then Ricky Coons passed away also. But Lou Adler's still around. Steve Barry's still around. P.F. Sloan, I think, passed away. But they were a good band. They were a created band, which I guess was not that uncommon back then. You know, I said the Monkees, as I said at the beginning, was a band like that. But this actually was a band that was created by Creed and Warren and Ricky. And so I felt it was more of a real band. Before I go, I just want to let you know that your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, for the times they are a-changin'. We'll see you next time.
Car dealership owner Cal Worthington. My son recently took my car without permission. Cops pulled him over and asked me what should be done. Said, I don't know. Why don't you fire a warning shot into his leg?